let's head over into the game and see if that Terrakion is going to be able to make an impact.
I'm sure you are very excited to see it make an appearance, and that's exactly what Nico has done for you here, Adam, leading out with Terrakion and that Dragapult, whereas Joseph has gone for the Excadrill and the Amoonguss. So really interesting choices here, some redirection and some offensive pressure from Nico.
Things that are a problem for Terrakion, I can assure you, Amoonguss is one of them. The redirect is really, really problematic with the follow me, and it just becomes a huge handful. You want to focus on it, you're kind of forced into rock sliding and hoping, which is actually a suboptimal way to play Terrakion. So, really interested to see how he does this. Obviously, Joseph's back and forth in the menu. I really like that we get to see it from his kind of side of things and see where he's thinking. You know, we saw him first round, okay, hover the Steel Spike, go max Steel Spike, boost your defenses, deal with the Terrakion that way. Then he went into the Pokemon menu, maybe, okay, well, do I want to switch? There's the switch. I think this is arguably one of the better decisions.
100%. Being able to get that Intimidate off on that Terrakion will be critical for him, and having access to that Fake Out going forward as well can also be helpful to break a potential Focus Sash on that Terrakion as well. However, there's going to be a Dynamax, so Nico obviously not going to be affected by the Intimidate thanks to Clear Body on the Dragapult. Can still utilise this opportunity to go for that Dynamax and be able to deal out a lot of damage. So Dynamax Dragapult here on the field, and this is where things can get a little bit awkward for Joseph if maybe something like a Max Worm with lowering the attack of his Pokemon comes into effect, or even the Max Phantasm just lowering the defense, allowing that Terrakion, despite the Intimidate, to maybe still deal some decent damage if you kind of level things out with the Intimidate and the defense drop. Joseph, however, also going to Dynamax up that Excadrill, and you know, we're seeing it here in an environment outside of sand, so Dragapult definitely going to be super speedy on this occasion, but Excadrill can still really hold its own. If it's able to go for something like those Max Steel Spikes and start boosting up its defense, that's where Nico's also going to run into a problem if he's not able to deal out as much damage. But Terrakion here on the field, not just saying, hey, I'm here to, you know, be an offensive pressure, I'm also here to help out my friend. Goes here for the Max Wormwind, Helping Hand boosted into the Incineroar that switched in, and will be able to pick up a really solid one-hit KO. Nico does not have to worry about this Incineroar going forward, gets rid of that pesky Pokemon once and for all in this game one. With a critical hit no less as well, and this means Joseph now really does have to adjust things. It does give him the opportunity to bring something in later on, but first of all, going to go for that Max Steel Spike, targeting down into the Terrakion, and takes it right down to the Focus Sash. So some really good damage coming out from both of these players, but I feel like where Dragapult was able to deal out so much offensive pressure, the Pokemon switching in for Joseph that hasn't been able to get the defense boost from that Max Steel Spike is going to be in a really precarious situation.
That's a throwback. The Helping Hand Terrakion is not something I've seen in a while. It took me a moment to believe it, really, and something that I think is cool coming to the fore. I love that it's able to do that, and he plays that turn so wisely, knowing where the Amoonguss was, saying, I'm not going to mess around with this Terrakion, like, trying to deal damage nonsense. I'm going to do something better and more valuable. I'm going to use a Helping Hand, and I'm going to make this Dragapult absolutely a nightmare to deal with, which Helping Hand really, really does there. That said, Terrakion isn't able to do much more now. The speed boost that the Excadrill's getting just applies too much pressure, and that switch is so wise. Incineroar into two physical attackers, perfect.
Exactly, it's the optimal opportunity to bring Incineroar to the field. Excadrill going to go for that Max Steel Spike, and quite wise by Nico to switch out, because Incineroar, as you can see, can take this Max Steel Spike so much better than the Terrakion did, and of course down to its Focus Sash it would now have been KO'd. Getting the defense up on the Tyranitar as well is really helpful going into these next couple of turns. Max Wormwood coming out though once again, trying to really lower the attack stat of both of these opposing Pokemon, just so that even if they are on the field, they're not going to be able to deal out as much damage as Joseph would like. Lowering down the attack of both, of course, the Excadrill and that Tyranitar.
This has been an interesting one, is the Dragapult just lowering the attacks as much as possible, along with the Incineroar getting those stats really, really low. That said, I think Joseph's kind of been in a pretty solid position, right? He's able to get good damage down. He's got great damage down with 2 Steel Spikes, and those defense boosts are key at making sure the Max Wormwinds aren't getting knockouts. So they're awkwardly trading these stat buffs and you know, nerfs as well, like trying to boost and lower each other. And I think at the end of Dynamax, that's when we're going to see where the chips really land. I think that this combination of sand is arguably going to be able to kind of sweep through it, but at least getting the attack down is going to help Nico here.
It certainly is. And Porygon 2 going to join the field as well, going to get that download boost, and actually manages to get the special attack boost, which we know Porygon 2 loves to get, so it can deal that extra damage. with the offensive moves it has got, it's going to be the Max Quaco coming out from the Excadrill, going into that Porygon 2, really not dealing a lot of damage, but I also like the setup from Joseph. He's been able to get his defense boosted up, and now also his special defense, and that's going to also help out against that Porygon 2 that just joined the field. Dragon Ball, however, going to go for another Max Wormwind, so basically saying to Joseph, you can keep your Pokemon on the field all you want, I'm going to make sure that they can't deal that much damage to my Pokemon, and you can also see how much damage is being dealt to that Tyranitar on the field as well. It's only, I think, got about 25 HP remaining. Goes for that Rock Slide, but is going to avoid the Porygon 2 on the switch in there, and isn't able to pick up the KO against the Dragapult thanks to the depleted attack stat of those Max Wormwinds coming into effect. So I feel like Joseph, he's in a great position where he's got his Sand mode out on the field without the threat of that Terrakion, but he's just unable to deal the damage that he wants to. It's got to be quite frustrating for him at this point.
He does have some really boosted defenses, though, and this Excadrill has not taken any damage yet, so it's going to take a couple hits to knock it out. Its attack stat down 4 stages, as we just saw, the combination of Intimidate and the constant Max Wormwinds putting him there. That said, Terrakion would usually be a great answer to something like Tyranitar, but the big concern is that Excadrill is always going to be able to outspeed it, right? And that's something that has always been a bit of a nightmare to deal with if you're the Terrakion player. That said, I mean, these defense boosts are going to be key, but Dragapult, outside of its Dynamax, is still able to do a lot.
Yeah, the little Dreepy putting in some work there, picking up a KO against the Tyranitar. Porygon 2 going to go for that Ice Beam into the Excadrill, of course, only a +1 special defense. Going to be able to, not going to be able to take those special attacks as well as the physical attacks. And Joseph, already down to his last 2 Pokemon here. The last one, however, is that Amoonguss, and you did mention at the beginning, Adam, this can be a really tricky Pokemon for some of Nico's Pokemon to deal with.
Right, I think the Amoonguss stops the Terrakion from playing the game the way it wants to. I think, obviously, the Steel Spike boosts do that as well. But what's curious to me here is how this Excadrill is able to fire back. We saw one Swords Dance already, and he probably looks like he wants to go and get a second one to make up for it. Of course, his attack just got lowered again by the Intimidate of this Incineroar. And this Porygon 2 could just start whittling down at things with the Ice Beams. The Excadrill is not going to lose its defense boost. That's pretty key. But the Terrakion needs to come in when it's safe. And the ideal answer to when is it safe would be when there's no Amoonguss with Rage Powder on the field.
Exactly, and Amoonguss actually, now I look at it a little bit more, Adam, it's not looking in the greatest position against a Fire-type user and a Pokemon that can have access to something like an Ice Beam as well, and you can see that going straight into the Amoonguss there, dealing over 50% damage to it. Incineroar going to follow up with a Flare Blitz as well. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see this being the double target to remove that pesky little Amoonguss from the field, and that's exactly what Nico is able to accomplish here, picking up the solid KO and leaving that Excadrill in a position where it's without its partner Pokemon that can help out. You're sort of looking at a 3v1 now situation.
Well, something else that is being done really, really well here is Nico's just letting the sand run out. Sandstorm doesn't have an unlimited turn timer anymore. This is a long time ago that it did. And letting that run out means whenever Terrakion comes back in, as long as it's down, it's just going to be able to pick up the knockout, kind of regardless of how many defense boosts. It's probably in range to do that. So very smart there from Joseph to kind of move on from that game. Think about his strategy for game number 2. But, Nico playing a fantastic game there. Really smart, really well thought through. And we talked about it between kind of our first game of the day and this one. A Dynamax Dragapult is pretty difficult to handle. And I think that was a really good example of just how much Dynamax Dragapult can do.
Exactly, it was in such a strong position there, being able to fire off those Max Wormwinds and really cause a lot of trouble on the opposing side of the field, and I think that really did show the amount of work that Dragapult can put in. Also, outside of the Dynamax, he was able to pick up the KO against that Tyranitar, and you noticed at the end that Nico was really trying to think about those sand turns and trying to make sure that they would possibly expire as well. And if you get rid of the Tyranitar, you don't have to worry about it at all. But I'm interested to see in game 2 whether that Dragapult is going to still be in the same action, or if Joseph is going to be able to switch things up, apply a lot more pressure, and maybe take it out.
He needs to find an answer to it, and the Tyranitar did well. I mean, the Tyranitar got a lot of damage down on it, but just taking kind of attack drops really limits you a little bit there. So I think Joseph can look at exactly the same kind of strategy, just maybe the targeting and execution needs a little more refinement. And overall, I think Sand's great. I think that keeping that Excadrill healthy is really key, but you just can't let it lose its attack like that.
Well, there's no time like the present to refine those skills of your Joseph, so let's jump into game 2 and see if he's able to pull it back in this match and try and force out a game 3. Remember, the loser of this match will be out of the competition, so there is so much to play for. Nico leading out with the Primarina and the Incineroar, and Joseph going for the Dragapult and the Amoonguss.
Both trainers mixing it up, something that you often see between games 1 and 2. I think I've never crunched the numbers on how many times that happens, but smart play on exactly what might be coming, right? And I think this Primarina is a really good addition from Nico Davide to say, well, you're going to bring something different. You're not going to bring Excadrill, and what I'm scared of is the Excadrill, so I'll bring Primarina. It's like a really trying to call that situation. The Excadrill, you know, not in the lead. Incineroar is something the Primarina doesn't mind either. Primarina just kind of needs to get some help dealing with this Amoonguss, which it has in the Incineroar. And this turn could be really good if he decides to just go after Amoonguss, which I know a lot of people, when they don't like it, just do.
Exactly. I actually really like this adjustment by Nico because having the Primarina on the field and being able to Dynamax it gives you the option to go for something like a Max Starfall, set that Misty Terrain up on the field, and then you are helping your partner Pokemon out from not having to worry about taking any potential spores from the opposing Amoonguss. You can also deal out some really good damage, apply pressure to that Incineroar with something like a Max Geyser. It just gives Nico so many different utility options here. Amoonguss gonna protect in the face of all of this risk, and Primarina actually going to say, you know, I can deal out really good damage to the Amoonguss. Don't even have to worry about setting up Misty Terrain for those spores if I can KO it, going for that Max Hailstorm. But Amoonguss, wisely protecting there, isn't going to be taking as much damage. Incineroar going to follow up with the Burning Jealousy. And I think it's interesting when we have a game where we don't see a Fake Out coming out from an Incineroar on the field. Don't see that all too often. Incineroar obviously going to be able to take that much better. But if you're Joseph here, you know that Amoonguss really is a sitting target for both of Nico's Pokemon.
Yeah, that Amoonguss is not in a great position either, and you're really limited to potentially one switch here. He's going to have to be careful about it. That switch is Tyranitar. You can't take a Hailstorm on the switch in. This is a big risk. Honestly, I think this is very risky. There we go. There's Joseph thinking about it. I think the Tyranitar is much safer than switching in your Dragapult into a slot where you just saw Max Hailstorm go. So Joseph just teasing us a little bit in the menu there, but Tyranitar coming in. Also changing the terrain, which is nice. If you can get that terrain up at the end of all of the Dynamax turns, things could go really well for you. I think this turn, defensive, a lot of repositioning, but could be really positive for Joseph.
I like the support here for that Tyranitar. You know, like you said, changing the terrain, getting that Sandstorm up will also give the Tyranitar a special defense boost in the face of this Primarina. The passing shot by the Incineroar will also lower the special attack. So if Tyranitar does accidentally catch some damage coming out from the Primarina, it's going to be in the best position to survive it. Manages to survive, but also critically, if it's holding that weakness policy, this could be a great switch in here for Joseph. Also bringing in that Amoonguss to protect it on that next couple of turns. Yes, it is. Weakness policy going to activate. Tyranitar looking to be in such a strong position right now.
Yeah, both trainers getting a little bit of what they want there. Able to land, you know, a combination of, well, I got the big amount of damage down, but I activated your weakness policy. Certainly an interesting trade to make. Obviously, as you mentioned, so much positioning has gone into this setup now, right? Which is Tyranitar with its weakness policy next to a redirector, and so much has gone into that that Joseph's got to be feeling in a pretty good position. Another change from Nico Davide, being able to say, you know what, I've got the Rillaboom now, but Rillaboom into Amoonguss, not ideal.
That's why having Amoonguss on the field right now for Joseph is so extraordinary. Being able to redirect an attack round, you know, you're going to be able to take any priority Grassy Glide from that Rillaboom, and anything followed up by that Primarina, we know it's got access to Max Hailstorm, means that Tyranitar is going to still be in a safe position to deal out some really big damage. Primarina can only go for single target attacks, so Amoonguss in a great position to be able to protect that Tyranitar going forward. Of course, this could be an opportunity for Primarina to maybe just go for that Max Guard, but I don't think Nico really is in a position where he wants to waste one of his max turns, particularly if he could still get the KO on that Amoonguss.
And this is one of those turns that you really play a mind game against the Amoonguss, right? You want to target it because in case it follow me's, but then you also don't want to get caught short and then just target the partner. Like, you could have got away with targeting the partner, but the Amoonguss doesn't follow me and you look foolish, or you throw it into a protect. So many mind games with Amoonguss. There are Pokemon I really like, and it plays so well in so many of these formats. Though the Tyranitar's just leaving that Primarina, not even scared of it right now.
No, exactly. And Lash Out going to come out and go down into that Incineroar, going to activate its berry as Primarina goes for that Max Geyser. So wants to change up the terrain, but also going to target down into that Amoonguss and does actually a really big chunk of damage. Takes over a third, even though it's not very effective, thanks to being a critical hit. So an opportune moment there for Nico to get some more damage off against this Amoonguss. You know, a Pokemon that often is quite hard to remove from the field. But Amoonguss as well, going to go for that Spore. Tyranitar, I think, being one of the bravest Pokemon on the field here. You know, there was no redirection there from the Amoonguss. And I think it was high risk and really high reward there by Joseph, being able to put that Primarina to sleep while grassy terrain was in effect and was able to.
There's that mind game coming into it where you've got access to the Max Geyser and you just didn't throw it at the Tyranitar. Even if you accepted that it might head towards the Amoonguss. Okay, well, that's fine. It does big damage. It sets the rain up. But that Tyranitar just got away scot-free and is now staying on the field with its weakness policy boosts, and it's against the sleeping Primarina. So it's got to be feeling pretty good about its position on the board right now. You know, as well, bear in mind, Joseph hasn't Dynamaxed anything yet, so he's probably feeling in a real healthy position to kind of swing this game rapidly back in his favour, particularly when his Primarina's... the Primarina on Nico's side is taking that much damage from a Rock Slide.
Oh, that took so much. I know it was the critical hit as well, but with the weakness policy boost, it just really did take advantage of the fact Primarina is asleep right now. You know, that was so strong, it should wake up. But that's not how the rules of Pokemon work, and I think Joseph was able to really utilise his position to be able to bring that Dragapult in really safely. You know, Fake Out obviously not going to do anything to it, and Primarina guaranteed to take that turn asleep. So now Joseph's in a position, as you mentioned, where he hasn't Dynamaxed yet, to be able to utilise it and deal out some really strong damage from one of his max moves.
There's going to be some really big turns coming up from Joseph, and I think that getting his Dynamax turns completed and being able to play off those will be big. And I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what he can do there. This Primarina's in a lot of trouble now it's asleep, taking these Rock Slides over and over. I think even without the crit, a follow-up one would have been, you know, pretty close to dealing with it anyway. And this Tyranitar's got away with the weakness policy boost and is able to sit on the field and start taking advantage of it as well. So really kind of wise play there. Joseph just waiting, I think, for that perfect endgame condition for the Dynamax Dragapult. Something we've actually seen from him before.
Exactly, just trying to play that late game Dynamax, as you said, and I think that can be so critical sometimes, particularly if you're able to preserve it as well as Joseph has. And as well, you know, you've got your Tyranitar dealing so much damage here on the field, picks up the KO against the Primarina and also takes that Incineroar right down into the red. And just, you know, to add insult to injury there, gets the flinch as well on that on the Incineroar. So Tyranitar being in a really, really strong position here. Now that Amoonguss is back on the field once again, it can apply pressure with something like a Spore, but it can also help out that Tyranitar using that redirection in order to help it go for those really, really big Rock Slides without having to worry about taking any damage.
And this Rillaboom is something that you'd love to get in front of the Tyranitar, right? You'd really like to be able to Grassy Glide it, but you just can't when the Amoonguss is there. So these adaptations that we've seen coming through from Joseph in this game, really, really nice. I think he's been playing it so well and setting himself up for a really successful end game here. The Tyranitar does give up his weakness policy boost, though, which is something that's a big ask. But obviously not enjoying the situation that much.
No, exactly. Maybe wants to preserve it for later on, knowing in the rain as well, the Amoonguss really doesn't have to worry about anything coming out from the Incineroar. Could be prime opportunity to go for another Spore here. Incineroar going to take that Grassy Glide really well, and the Incineroar and Nico's side going to go for that parting shot once again and just keep it provided, or preserved I should say, there in the back, so that it can come back in and intimidate another day. Particularly as Tyranitar's got itself off the field, Nico wants to be able to apply that pressure going forward. As you mentioned, Adam doesn't have that weakness policy boost anymore. This is now an opportunity for Nico to start applying that sort of debilitating pressure with those attack drops.
It's going to be an interesting late game from Nico Davide's side. It's just working in such a strange fashion. The way that he's got this Rillaboom, the Rillaboom needs to deal with the Tyranitar. You know, obviously there's only so much that the Amoonguss can do. But now this Rillaboom's kind of pressured by this Incineroar. And obviously this Porygon 2 going to sleep is a huge problem. So Joseph has been playing a really smart kind of defensive mid to late game here. And he's still got his two Pokemon that deal the huge amounts of damage in Dragapult and in his Tyranitar relatively healthy. While, you know, Nico's down to 3 Pokemon already and is now probably going to take a lot of damage for the next few turns.
Well, Joseph really playing with some switches going on the past couple of turns, brings the Sand back to the field and brings that Tyranitar back into the fray. This is another opportunity for Rillaboom to go for a movement instead. It's going to be that high horsepower catching the Tyranitar on the switch and going to take it down to 50% damage. Of course, weakness policy already activated. It doesn't go off twice, unfortunately, for that Tyranitar. As Amoonguss goes for that Sludge Bomb, targeting down into that Rillaboom. Doesn't quite do 50%, but critically gets that poison and essentially puts a timer ticking away on that Rillaboom, as well as the little bit of Sand Chip going to go around as well and just whittle away at some of Nico's Pokemon. You know, Tyranitar, again, still looking to be in a decent position, but I think without having that weakness policy boost, against a Rillaboom and a Porygon 2, Rock Slide is not going to be the optimal choice here.
Honestly, this Tyranitar just needs to buy a turn. Let another Sludge Bomb connect onto this Rillaboom, and then that would, you know, between the poison and the sand, it's a guarantee. The Rillaboom will protect to buy a little bit of time there. I kind of like it. And if Joseph's called this one, which I think he has, just going for an attack, trying to get some damage down onto this Porygon while it's still asleep, means he's kind of in exactly the same position next turn, assuming the Porygon 2 stays asleep.
Exactly, basically burning the Protect on that Rillaboom there. Amoonguss going to go for the Spore into that Porygon 2 in case there was potentially a switch, but to no avail here. So really not a lot of damage going around on this turn other than kind of the damage from the poison or from the sand. But as you mentioned, Adam, it really does just put Joseph and Nico kind of into that same position going into this next turn, but with Nico's Pokemon at a little less HP at the start of it.
Joseph's hovering something in the... Okay, sorry. Oh. He's in and out. I'm going to be honest. We get the privilege of seeing, which is something we don't usually get to, and it could be a big call. We'll see if it works out for him in the long run, particularly when he has Dragapult available, a Pokemon that usually Dynamaxes. Maybe just trying to break through a potential Protect there, kind of sick and tired of dealing with that. That said, I mean, if Joseph's gone for a similar turn to before, he could just kind of keep on going that way. So yeah, this Intimidate's going to help, but the switches here could be really kind of problematic.
Well, you mentioned that Dragapult, and that's Pokemon Joseph has decided to switch in, but interestingly enough, it is not going to be the Dynamax Pokemon of choice, as Joseph has decided to lock that in with a slightly controversial pick. But you said, you know, it could be a high risk. This is the loser's bracket. They cannot afford to lose out in this match, so Joseph does have to take all the risks, and it is a Dynamax Amoonguss out here on the field. So much HP going on for this Pokemon at the moment, and can apply some really good pressure with some of its moves. Porygon 2 gonna go for the Ice Beam, but Amoonguss in its Dynamax form can take that so easily. It's not afraid, and it can go back for a Max Ooze, targeting down into the Incineroar that has switched in. Not actually enough to pick up the KO against it. Sand might help out a little bit here, but you know, the Poison type max move, same as the Fighting type, not the same sort of base power as the other ones. It is a little bit lowered, but critically it gets that special attack boost, and Amoonguss can still utilize that into that next turn. And actually the Sand did really help out Adam. Incineroar's been KO'd.
I'm not even sure what to say about this one, Lou. It's something, I'll be honest, I haven't prepped for a Dynamax Amoonguss. But the Max Ooze kind of puts up this really nice endgame, right? Where the Rillaboom can't protect because it's going to get caught by Max Ooze, and it can't Fake Out because it's a Dynamax. So the only thing you really have to try and deal with it is Porygon 2, whose time is going to be limited. You know, Porygon 2 is able to deal some good damage, but not great damage, and it's just not going to be able to fire back against all four. So while it was a Pokemon I'm not expecting, I think it's going to be able to put Joseph in a very much winning position here, just on the fact it has a double the health pool and is able to take those hits, right? It's going to take Ice Beams for a good 3-4 turns, or at least 2 more until Dynamax ends. But Max Ooze, I mean, it's already got a special attack boost.
Exactly, and it's in a really good position to keep going for those Max Oozes, so that even outside of Dynamax, it can really take care of that Porygon 2 with something like a Sludge Bomb. Dragapult, however, also going to help out a little bit going for those Dragon Darts. Going to be able to pick up the KO against Rillaboom, paving the way for the Dynamax Amoonguss to deal some big damage to that Porygon 2. The one thing that could be the thorn on the side is if Ice Beam maybe potentially gets a freeze. You know, there's no Misty Terrain in effect, but Amoonguss able to pull through. You know, he's big and he's mean. He's not going to be stopped by a pesky Porygon 2. Even though it's still not dealing out a lot of critical damage, the fact that Dragapult's on the field, and you saw how much the little Dreepies and the Dragon Darts did, and, you know, both being able to target down into that Porygon 2, it's just... I honestly cannot believe what Joseph's been able to accomplish with that. He really noticed a great win condition with that Amoonguss and was not afraid to go for it.
I think it's cool to see people experimenting and learning kind of exactly how Dynamax works. And his win condition here was, I need to keep Amoonguss alive for a few more turns. How better to keep it alive than just doubling your health and saying, alright, well, I can now take 5 Ice Beams instead of 3, right? It's certainly an interesting way round, and Amoonguss isn't given his time to shine, as Nico Davide does decide to forfeit this one and force us to, guess what, another high-pressure Game 3 here in the losers bracket.
I mean, Amoonguss really was the hero of that game too. You know, phenomenal way for Joseph to be able to win out the set, but also he was just able to preserve it so well throughout the game. He always made sure it was on the field at the right opportunity to apply some pressure. Went really bold with that turn where he went for the Spore into the Primarina. I thought was a really brave play, and it certainly paid off for him. But I think critically as well, you know, you have to also credit Joseph's play. You know, we can talk about the Amoonguss all we want. It's a great Pokemon and it did so well for him, but he actually enabled the position where he had a late game Dynamax, so he was able to use that opportunity. And if you're Nico, I don't think you ever would have seen that coming.
No, it's not something many people kind of prep for and learn about how much damage they're going to be able to do, how much damage they're going to take from something like the Maxus. So certainly something he's going to need to figure out real quick before we get into Game 3. This one is for all the marbles, keeps them in the tournament, it keeps them going in this one. So both trainers made some changes in Game 2. I think Game 3 probably going to be some more changes to give them that best chance.
Well, let's see what adjustments were made. Let's jump straight into that Game 3. Remember, as always, the winner of this match will be able to advance in the tournament, and the loser is regrettably out of the action. Nico going to lead out with the Porygon 2 and the Primarina, and Joseph bringing the Incineroar and the Dragapult. And once again, we're starting a game here where the Primarina looks to be in a phenomenal position here for Nico.
This Primarina Porygon 2 is popping up all over the place, and something that trainers really kind of gravitating towards, realizing how strong it can be, and it just seems to set you in a really interesting position. Of course, things are a little bit different here to some of the other times we've seen it. Incineroar can slow down the pace of the game a little bit with something like the Fake Out, try and prevent that Trick Room from going up and play it around from there. So better options than some of the previous times we've seen it, but you know, Joseph's still in the position where, hey, Dragapult's not able to do anything at all in these first few turns. Let me get it out, let me readjust my position.
Exactly, and Joseph just going to switch things up a little bit and bringing that Tyranitar back onto the field. Of course, getting up that special defense boost, and I was about to say, I wouldn't be surprised to see a similar ilk to Game 2, going for that parting shot into the Primarina to enable the Tyranitar to be in the best position to take any of these special attack moves coming out from the Primarina. This time, however, there's no Dynamax to have to worry about, but there's still the potential for Joseph to have his weakness policy procced by that Primarina going into this next couple of turns, and the helpful Amoonguss is back on the field. Primarina going to go for that Moonblast, is indeed going to go into that Tyranitar, able to take it with only about a third of damage. Will of course lower its special attack, but Tyranitar, don't worry about that. It's got a weakness policy and the attack stat is going to be boosted, and that's the one that it concerns itself with. This Porygon 2 though is going to be in a position to go for Ice Beam and actually doubles up straight into that Tyranitar slot. Would have been nice if that could have caught that Amoonguss on the switch in, because Amoonguss now has come in relatively for free for Joseph, and it can definitely get up to a few tricks.
I think what's cool here is he doesn't go Trick Room, Nico. He just holds it, knows about the Amoonguss, doesn't want to play against an Amoonguss in Trick Room. That's an absolute nightmare. That's a really kind of switch that is well known and people play to a lot of the time. So really smart for him not to do that. Getting big damage down on that Tyranitar doesn't hurt, really. It does mean that it's going to be kind of easy to tidy up, as long as you can weave in another move. Obviously, the opportunity is going to be a little bit limited with Amoonguss there to redirect and Tyranitar trying to fire out Rock Slides and maybe try and flinch things a little bit there. But getting it nice and low is something that I think Nico needs to do and try and just kind of deal with it as early as possible. Because even though it lost its weakness policy boost last game, I still think it was really good in building momentum and buying a little bit of time for Joseph in that middle of the game, which he did eventually win.
Well, both trainers here making some switches to bring in both their Incineroars onto the field, firing off some Intimidate. I think most critically the Intimidate working against that Tyranitar to try and counteract some of the weakness policy boosts will be critical, but Rock Slide able to still fire off, will be able to connect on both these Pokemon for gigantic damage. Incineroar being pushed down to below 50%, having to eat its berry already so early on in this game, and Primarina having its health dwindled down already. Primarina going to be able to follow off with a Moonblast here, going to target down into that Tyranitar, is actually able to pick up the KO thanks to the help that Porygon 2 gave it previously with that Ice Beam, being able to do that additional damage to push it over 50%, so Primarina could follow up here. So I think actually when you look at the trades here, Nico really did get off well. You know, the Rock Slide dealt so much damage out, but losing a Tyranitar I think is a bit of a problem here for Joseph.
That Tyranitar was a big focal point of his team in the middle of the game, in game number 2, which he managed to take the win in. So certainly troublesome to lose it this early. Nico playing it very smart, knowing he needed 2 Moonblasts and a little bit more. Getting that Porygon damage down early, really, really wise there. And I think that's just really good game planning, learning from games number 1 and 2 where you need to be when it comes to dealing these kind of damage. Chunks every single turn, making sure that you're always able to pick up knockouts. And yeah, he took a lot of damage off the Rock Slide, but he's still got an extra Pokemon, which is certainly going to help him, especially when he's going to be switching around with these Incineroars.
Well, Incineroar going to switch out in place of that Porygon 2 on Nico's side. So bringing back out his leads as Porygon 2 does get the download boost and once again gets that special attack boost, which it loves to have, particularly in the face of that Dragapult can threaten with an Ice Beam. The Dragon Dart's going to come out though once again, going to target down into that Porygon 2, dealing a decent amount on the switch in, but Porygon 2 really just showing off the class of its bulk here, able to take those really well. Parting Shot going to follow up into that Primarina once again, so I believe Primarina is now actually at -2 special attack thanks to the Parting Shots that these Incineroars laid against it, so that does allow the Dragapult to live a little bit safely here from any of those potential Moonblasts, but if you're Joseph, it really looks like, I mean, I say that, it could be the Amoonguss, but Dragapult looks to be the Pokemon you want to Dynamax, so you want it to be as healthy as possible, and that Moonblast just goes straight into that Dragapult with a critical hit and picks up the solid KO. So, unfortunately for Joseph, that Dragapult is not going to be able to be his Dynamax Pokemon in this game.
Yeah, I think it's your turn for the Caster Curse. As soon as you mentioned that Dragapult wants to be nice and healthy and maybe Dynamax for the late game, it's taken out by the Moonblast, and he did so many things right, Joseph. Setting up something like the parting shots onto it, trying to keep it healthy there. As you mentioned, I mean, landing that critical hit. Certainly an interesting way to go, but now Joseph's stuck with just Incineroar or Amoonguss. The options are going to be limited for your Dynamax. That's all I'm saying. You know, neither trainer's actually gone for the Dynamax yet, so we'll see if Joseph looks to game number 2 for some inspiration and is able to swing this one back. But Nico has been kind of getting things going his way really, really well in game number 3.
Yeah, exactly. Nico, I believe they're going straight for the Dynamax of this, you know, the first Dynamax of this game too, and it's going to be another interesting Pokemon choice. It's going to be that Porygon 2 jumping in on the action. Again, not a Pokemon where you really see Dynamax. It's normally its next evolution in the chain, that Porygon Z, but Porygon 2 wants to, you know, do the same kind of shenanigans that the Amoonguss did and show that it can be a Dynamax Pokemon too. Primarina going to go for that Hydro Cannon actually into that Incineroar and is going to be able to pick up a really strong KO, and you know, Joseph still hasn't actually been able to use his Dynamax. He didn't Dynamax up that Amoonguss. This allows Porygon 2 to go for that Max Lightning, and yes, it doesn't deal a lot of damage, but the critical thing is it sets up that electric terrain so that Amoonguss can't go for any spores in the rest of this game at the moment, you know, unless he can install out the electric terrain. The Pokemon aren't going to be going to sleep, and that's exactly what Joseph was trying to do there. So Porygon 2 going to be protected, and you know, if Porygon 2, we know it's got access to something like the Ice Beam, turning that into the Max Hailstorm, that Amoonguss isn't going to be able to avoid that.
There's not much this Amoonguss can do, even if it Dynamaxes. You know, Joseph trying to put things to sleep, so maybe he could weave in a little bit extra over the last few turns. Of course, he is going to try it. I don't think there's any reason not to in this one. But looking at his team, his big hard hitters in Dragapult and Tyranitar are gone. There's not enough room for the Amoonguss to play, and even though it had such a pivotal role in game number 3, he's not able to pull it up, and he